Good day, I'm Sean Hotung, and welcome to Hotung Story. Today I'm actually tying up a loose end. My guest will be criminal lawyer extraordinaire, my wife Mary, who asked me to analyze the circumstances surrounding the death of 5 to 6 people that were involved in the Carrian case. Now, the Carrian case in the 1980s rocked the Hong Kong financial sector and would actually even throw some shade on the judiciary in light of the outcome. The deaths that I'm going to speak about does not include the death of Jabril Abraham, the accountant who was murdered at the Regent Hotel, and it was his death that, in essence, broke down and exposed the Carrian Empire, completely shattered it. So that episode was actually done on Dangerous Persons 2.0 English channel, where I had the privilege of meeting Chief Inspector Norman Mackillop, and he was chief police officer on the case, and he actually caught his man, or one of the men, who was an accessory to murder. Anyway, you can see that episode on Dangerous Person 2.0 English channel, and you can see the sticker or the address go across the screen. So the following is actually a speculative discussion of the circumstances of the deaths of these other individuals that occurred during the police investigation and or during and right after the trial of the case. I would just like to point out one other thing. This is actually a money laundering case, a huge case of, I believe, theft from the Malaysian people by someone in the government, and several government banks were used. And millions of dollars were, in essence, laundered through Hong Kong through this man, George Tang. And the amazing thing is that it seems this has been repeated. The blueprint has been copied by a gentleman named Joel, J-H-O-L, Lau. I understand he has some warrants out for him right now. Anyway, he took billions of dollars, 4.5 billion, I believe. So this is history repeating itself. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into the discussion with my guest, Mary, regarding these very odd deaths of the 5 to 6 persons. Thank you. Good afternoon, good day. I'm Sean Hotung, and with me is Mary Hotung. So now in this case, Jabril Abraham is murdered in room 609 in the Regent Hotel, 1983, July, I believe. He was strangled with a towel belt from a bathrobe and later found. And as we know from our episode, that Chief Norman Mackillop gets his man with Hotung. However, there's a lot of other people that died, strangely, involving this case. So the first one I'd like to go to is Justice Barker. Now, Justice Barker was on the Court of Appeal, and he's the one who heard George Tang's case with 5 other co-defendants. Now, it's very abnormal for
a cat to be on a show talking about a murder case. But come here.
Okay.
Fine, let it be.
So okay. It's very abnormal for a judge on the Court of Appeal to come down to a lower court. In this case, it'd be the Court of First Instance. Although we've seen a pattern of this with Chief Justice Riggs in another case back in the early 1970s.
The McLean case.
Yeah, so in this matter, Justice Denny Roberts insisted that Justice Barker hear this case, go down and hear this case. And case was 281 days, longest one ever in Hong Kong history. And at the end of the day, Barker declared there was no case to answer, and the defendants were free to go. Now, when you declare there's no case to answer, the prosecution cannot appeal it. It's done. So this was a bit of a shocking verdict or judgment by Barker. Anyway, during the course of the case, Barker was seen at the Hong Kong club, always drinking during lunchtime. At one time he fell and knocked some teeth out, had to go to the hospital. On his way, walked back to the courthouse. So just a lot of shady stuff. And Another time he implied he had already made up his mind about the case before all the evidence was in. Regardless, he retires and he goes to Cyprus, and he's killed there.
He got into a car accident.
Yes, so he was killed there.
You mean he was killed by someone else? It's not
Well, no, officially by accident. Okay, he died there.
Okay, he died there.
Okay, well, what's suspicious to me is that at the same time, Denny Roberts is in Cyprus, and it will be Denny Roberts who helps Barker's wife sell his robes and his wigs in order to raise money for a headstone.
You mean the Chief Justice that asked Barker to hear the case and came all the way down from above to hear that case was, as incidentally, in Cyprus?
In his home.
When he died, before or after he died?
Same time.
Oh, so when he got into the accident.
Mm-hmm. Roberts had a home in Cyprus.
I see.
Yeah, he lived in Cyprus and in England.
Okay.
But he had a home there.
All right.
So Barker, I guess, maybe was following his footsteps and got his home there. So
they must be friends or something.
Oh yeah, they're very good friends.
I see. Okay.
So, but anyway, the issue, I don't really have that much of an issue with Barker. I think he did not do his duties, and he just dismissed the case with no case to answer, preventing it from coming forward.
There was a lot of criticism at the time.
Yes.
Because of, all this evidence being heard, and you didn't even give a chance for them to defend themselves. And then you just say no case to answer, and you let them go. You just acquitted them.
Yeah, and I don't believe normally the prosecution puts its case forward, the defense puts theirs, and then the prosecution can rebut it. I don't believe that was allowed, that last part. There was no case to answer.
All right.
But anyway, this Sir Denny Roberts, as we'll see in Margaret Chu's book, Justice Without Fear or Favor, she's very critical of him. Now, in this book, A Death in Hong Kong, okay, written by my good friend, Colonel Nigel Collette. I think if you flip to page, 357?
All right, let's see.
Now, this is a case about a young Scottish policeman who was a homosexual. And allegedly, he 5 times. And my good friend, the colonel, actually believes that happened because the caliber of the bullets weren't that strong in those days. So
Nigel Collette believes that he killed himself?
Yeah, that is.
All right.
So I'm not so sure for me, though. But regardless, during the prosecution of and the investigation of this homosexual policeman, there was a guy called John Richard Duffy. And he was arrested, and at one point, he basically threatened to expose other homosexuals, one of them being Sir Denny Roberts. Okay? Now, you must remember Ian McLean, who lived up in the house. This was I think an American Guaylo.
23rd Plantation Road.
Okay.
That was where he lived. It was, yeah.
Yeah, and he was, he indulged with having sex with underage young men. And he was well connected, he had parties, and he was eventually murdered by 2 of them. And in that matter, Sir Denny Roberts actually stepped in and heard the case, and I think he gave 3 years to each of them.
One is 3 years, one is 3 years and 9 months. Oh, Sir Denny Roberts again?
Yeah, he appeared in it again. So
I remember vividly this case because it's actually quite a case in the Chinese community as well. Because this guy, Ian McLean, he had this house on the peak near Plantation Road on the 23rd, and he called his house a name called Wan Yu San Fong, means a place for you to have sex. Basically, it's called a sex house. If you literally translate it. And what happened was he was an antique dealer. He had a shop on Hollywood Road.
Okay.
And he was seen by people that he was chasing or chased by naked boys.
Yeah, he was chasing one around his house.
Yeah, and they're all naked. And what happened that evening was he got.
Oh, that's a separate incident. Two separate incidents.
But he was often seen with younger male.
Yeah.
And doing certain different, those indecent activities, and people can actually see you doing it from the garden or something. And he was killed after a sex game gone wrong. He was all tied up, and a lot of equipments were found on the premises. And I believe, you're right, they were leniently dealt with.
Yeah, so here, I found it right here. His counsel, Patrick Yu, Sound familiar?
Yeah, my good friend Patrick Yu was the counsel.
Said that McLean had asked for trouble and got it. Chief Justice Robert accepted this quote-unquote gay defense. So no other evidence of McLean's sexual orientation was adduced. So in this, Roberts was accepting the word of two killers, one of whom was already a convicted felon. He accepted a reduced plea of manslaughter, sentenced both to 3 years, 9 months in prison. Roberts was himself a man accused of being a homosexual who preyed on young boys. He was on Duffy's list.
Jeez.
Okay, so now my point here, well, okay, we'll do one more, and then we'll get back to my point. Now, on page 375, Sir Denny Roberts remained Chief of Justice of Hong Kong until he handed it over to Sir Yang in 1988. Robert was aware of and managed to live with the rumors and allegations that he was a pedophile. On one occasion, he slipped up to Eileen Bridgewater at a party and said, "You know, I don't like little boys, only little girls."
What?
Sickening as that remark sounded to her, she had no conviction of its truth.
So meaning that she believed that he liked not only girls but boys.
Yes, she believed that Roberts liked little boys.
Yeah, but no matter boys or girls, they're underage.
Against the law, you're the Chief Justice, too.
Wow, that's bad.
Yeah. So my point here is this Roberts was susceptible to blackmail. Because a lot of people knew.
Wow.
Okay?
No wonder, justice without fear or favor. You see, this is the vow that judges take before they became a judge.
Yeah.
They will have to have no fear. But if you have something to hide and you are open to blackmail, then you will always have fear.
Yeah.
These books, let me advertise them. This is the Chinese version. This is an English version by Marjorie Chiu. This is a book that you really cannot find anymore.
Yeah, it's out of print.
It's out of print.
Yeah.
And this is a secret, exposing the secrets of the Hong Kong judiciary, and one in Chinese, one in English.
Yeah, in the 1980s.
Yeah.
It's very eye-opening.
She is brave. She's really brave. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, my point is, this is a motive for Roberts to say, Barker, you need to take this case. You need to get down, because he could be pressured.
Sure.
Okay? And now don't forget what we're talking about. George Tang, billions of dollars. So much money that you'll remember in the episode when Norman said he called 2 CCB officers over to go into the bank and review the transactions. One of these officers came back to Norman and said, "I can't tell you about it."
I remember.
Because it's so explosive.
Yeah.
And Norman said, "Don't be ridiculous. You're going to tell me this is a murder case." But if it's CCB officers like that, so afraid of this explosive material, then a lot of other people. Remember also Wardley, the branch of HSBC, was wiped out. It was wiped out because of this incident. So you're talking about a lot of powerful people involved. So anyway, there's more to Roberts, but it kind of goes off the Carrian case.
So Roberts is very suspicious. That's all you can say.
Yes, he was open to blackmail.
And he put Barker into that position. That's another suspicious thing. And he was there coincidentally when Barker was killed in an accident.
Yes.
And he was handling the estate of Barker. And
Yes.
I remember Barker was newly married at that time
That's
to
right.
a lady. And the lady has to come out in the open and make a big statement that the estate was bankrupt.
Right.
We have no money. We have no money.
Yeah.
So why?
So much so you almost don't believe him.
Yeah, it's a little bit too much.
Yeah. Actually, I
Okay.
don't believe him.
Sure.
But that's a good way to say, no need to look here for money because we don't have money. I'm sorry. So,
Okay.
I don't know.
So, but Robert was there helping him to clear the estate,
Yeah.
selling the pots and pans and everything.
Okay, the wigs and robes. I'm not sure about
the
pots
wigs and robes.
pans.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So now, another murder, which is Ahmed bin Saad. He is in the accounts department in Malaysia of BBMB, the Malaysian bank. And he disappears for a month. And he's found in the jungles on the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur, and he's been stabbed in the stomach, disemboweled, So he's dead. And the funny thing is, the police said they had no motive. The police could not find out why. However, Ian Robinson, in his book, The Joker's Downfall, about George Tang, he claims it was over a divorce matter. I have no idea where he got his information from.
Did he die before or after Ibrahim was murdered?
He died after Abraham.
Oh, after Ibrahim. Okay.
Yeah. So, but he's in the accounts department. So you got another accountant here. Okay. And Abraham only disappeared for, what, a day, 2 days before the alarm went out, before he was found in the banana plantation. This guy's in a jungle, but he's not found for a month. The next death, the third death, ICAC officer. He's an exhibits officer. Handling
the evidence and what kind of documents to produce. Yeah.
That's right. So he is in the ICAC offices in the warehouse, handling all the documents for the case on Devoy Road, and the lawyers from both sides, and there was a lot of lawyers, would have to come to him, check the exhibits, whatever, and then make copies. However, what happened is 4 very critical pieces of evidence disappeared during the course of George Tang's trial. And this officer, Leung, he allegedly jumps from the 22nd floor of a building on Devoy Road. So there was 2 things that jumped out. One thing that always kind of irritates me a bit is when you're doing well, he wrote one to his wife, and then he wrote a second one to his work, his bosses, apologizing, which I find kind of weird.
Okay, so these 2 letters, one to the family, the other one to the work, will pop up later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on another death, but this is one thing that you have to register. So 2 letters, one for work and one for family. Okay.
Yeah. And then one other thing that I did not realize the importance of until I mentioned it to you was that he had removed his shoes before he jumped. I didn't think too much about it until you told me.
Yeah, it's actually a Malaysian and Singapore custom, or I shouldn't say that. It's the way that they often do it. When someone commits, they take off their shoes and they properly put their shoes on the edge of the building before they do their business. So, but if you're talking about Hong Kong, I don't know whether Americans or English people are doing that.
No.
So if you jump, you jump. Just like, they don't take off their shoes first. So this taking off the shoes before you do that is basically very, very Malaysian and Singaporean. So this ICAC officer, I suppose he was a local Hong Kong person, right?
That's my understanding.
So I have never heard a Hong Kong person doing that.
Yeah, so that jumps out at you. And this, remember, the murderer of Jalil, Mac.
Ibrahim, yeah.
Okay, yeah, his murderer, Mac, Hotung, is Malaysian.
Sure.
Okay? There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
And I'll read you something that came out of Ian's Robinson's book. Mac, his convicted murderer, this is the guy that Chief Inspector Mackillop bust. His convicted murderer implicated George Tang and named a senior Malaysian politician. Okay, he actually named someone. We've never had that name. Okay. So, but Mac changed his story too.
Sure.
So this Malaysian thing is running through everyone's murder except for Barker in Cyprus. So anyway, that's you have this Malaysian aspect to Officer Tom Leung, and you have 2 notes. So this goes to the next alleged, which for me is the most suspicious. Now this is John Wimbush. Wimbush. Okay, he's found dead April 13th, 1984. He is scheduled to do a police interview with the Commercial Crime Bureau a couple of days after the 13th.
He was a senior partner of Deakins, a law firm.
Yeah.
He was at the time on vacation with his family in England. And he received a request for him to have an interview with the ICAC or the police, I can't remember. So he actually bought a ticket with the return ticket to come and do this interview and get back to his family.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. And if he had anything he's worried about, he wanted to abscond, he didn't even need to come back. Right. He just needed to stay where he was.
Right. Now remember, this is 1984. Jalil was killed in 83. A full year has not passed. And the way John Wimbush was found dead was that there was a rope tied around his neck. His body was in a pool, and at the other end of the rope was a 55-pound concrete man cover. The public to believe is he tied a 55-pound concrete manhole on his neck and then either jumped into the pool with it or threw it into the pool, and he dove in with it, because if you brace yourself...
It is the private swimming pool of where he lived, right? The compound.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The condominium.
Yeah, so if you walked in with it, I don't see you sitting down on the pool. Your instinct is going to make you walk out with it, okay? So I'm thinking maybe he was strangled with the nylon cord the same way Jalil was, and then as the cover-up, it was tied to the concrete manhole and everything's tossed into the water. Now, obviously I haven't seen the autopsy, so they always say we found his body in the pool, but I have never seen the police say he died by drowning. So there was an article drowning or something, but I never seen the police said he died by drowning. So I don't know. I'd like to know if he actually died by drowning, or was his neck broken when he went in, or was he dead before he went in?
That's actually interesting. I don't remember any coroners caught for this incident. Normally, when you die in this, on this kind of suspicious circumstances, they will call a coroner's inquest, right?
Yeah.
I cannot remember any. So they just decided that, right?
Right, because he wrote 2 notes.
Oh, one for the family, one for the work, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, again, which I find, is this customary? Everyone does 2 notes? Okay, most people just do 1, right? Okay.
It looks like the murderer may not want him to, maybe the murderer wasn't sure that he died or he didn't die and didn't want him to have a chance to float back up. So that's why he was sunk by this heavy cement?
Even so, your body's going to float back up after the gases.
Yeah, but if you are, anchored by the cement, you won't be able to float up.
I don't know how much he weighed.
So, but anyway, it is suspicious enough. No one killed himself by putting that big cement on yourself.
So
it's not necessary, right?
Yeah, I don't see how you walk into the pool. Your body's going to be screaming for you to walk back up and get that breath of fresh air. He should be able to pick up 55 pounds.
Sure.
So it's very suspicious. And then there's a couple other funny things that happens. One is his neighbor, who I think is still alive, Rodrigo Lam. He is one of the 5 defendants that's on trial with George Lam.
That was acquitted.
No case to answer.
Okay.
However, when the police asked him about, he was the neighbor of John, and he replied, I have no idea why he would do this. Which actually, he should have a good idea. Because John and Deakins is the law firm of Carrian. And Rodrigo is in the Gammon House deal. So these guys have met before. That's one of the biggest real estate deals in Hong Kong at the time. So if you're familiar with anything Carrian is doing, you know something's wrong. So you should have an idea that there's possible fraud involved here, because John is actually representing Carrian. So this brings me to another defendant, is Richard A. Wallace. He's an attorney for Deakins. Okay? He's John's co-worker. Okay? But he doesn't kill himself. He goes through the trial and gets acquitted with no case to answer. So another very disturbing thing about this with John is he's a lawyer, he's a senior partner. If you're a lawyer, you have half the tools you need to defend yourself in any type of interrogation. Okay? If they're asking about my client, there's attorney-client privilege. I can't tell you. Okay? You have a right not to incriminate yourself at that time.
So you're saying, as a lawyer, you know how to defend and you have a chance to defend. You're a fighter with the law, with the tool that you learn. There's no reason for you to kill yourself.
Yeah, you're a senior partner, you're in your mid-40s, okay, you have a family.
Waiting for you back there for you to return.
So nothing makes sense here unless you were going to be honest. Okay? Because then, if you know your client committed fraud, the attorney-client privilege doesn't stand. Okay, because he's in a criminal enterprise.
Well, he can still choose not to say anything.
Sure, he could,
But,
or he could be honest.
Okay. But it's always dangerous to be honest in some situations. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
what.
all right.
In this situation, another kicker is this Lorraine Osman. He is the head of the local Malaysian bank, and he's the one making sure that George Tang gets these loans whenever he needs them. And so he's neck deep into this stuff. And what does he do? He flees. He runs right away to England. He goes to jail. He's there for 7 years, I think, in solitary confinement. He would prefer to stay locked up in England than return to Hong Kong. Okay?
I see. In solitary confinement. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a protection cell.
Right.
Okay.
Okay? So because if the guy, let's say John wasn't, let's say he was killed by the Malaysian who had taken out Jalil. Because there's always been a mystery man they've never caught. Okay?
Yeah, because Mac, the so-called person responsible for Jalil's murder, he didn't do it.
That's right.
Evidence shows that he didn't do it, but he knew something, so he's
Yeah.
still convicted, but
That's-
there was someone else.
He was the accessory because remember he left to get the suitcase,
Yeah.
knowing Jalil was going to be killed.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
but-
also the waiter saw it more than two men in the room with the victim.
Right.
So there was one person on the run. Oh.
Yeah.
So Osman knows the murderer is still walking around waiting for you to come back.
Well, Osman knows that this George Tang has enough influence, which is actually, somewhat collaborated by Mac to take people out.
Okay.
So
okay.
Osman eventually comes back and he's sentenced something, it's a reduced sentence because he served so much time in England. His action of staying in solitaire tells me he's scared to come to Hong Kong. Okay?
Okay.
Anyway, those are just this speculation, except for the parts that come out of the books.
What about that really beautiful girl that was killed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, okay, I don't actually
Think that's related.
connect it. It's related because of the lawyer. Alderdice was his name. He was a New Zealander, loved his horse races and his football games, English football games. And he went over to Macau and met this beautiful Russian lady of the night, okay? And fell in love.
Oh.
He stayed at the Westin.
Oh, the Coloane Hotel.
Yeah, the Grand Coloane
Yeah.
for a full month in one of their cottages.
Oh,
You know they have cottages there?
I don't know they have cottages.
Yeah, neither
Okay.
did I. So anyway, full month, and he tries to buy her contract. However, she's under the control of the Russian mafia, who's renting her out to the Chinese controllers in the casinos. And basically, because of this type of friction, the Chinese decide not to renew her contract. So she goes back up to Vladivostok. And Alderdice empties his bank account, I think it was $150,000, $180,000, and flew up to Vladivostok to try to buy her.
Oh.
Okay, from the Russian mafia, and I think that was a huge mistake. Bottom line, they're both killed. He is shot dead in the head, and she is tortured and raped and shot dead. And a couple years later, her best friend, Olga, comes forth to the Russian police and tells them what really happened. That's why I don't think this is connected.
Related to, okay.
And what had happened was they basically raped her and executed her. Then the story gets a little weird. They said they left the money on purpose to show Alderdice he couldn't buy a Russian contract slave.
So you mean on the murder scene, the $180,000 US dollars was still there?
Oh, I don't know if it was US dollars, but that's
Okay.
one story. The other story is the money was taken.
Okay.
So I don't know. And I'm not going to Russia to find out. So anyway,
All right.
Olga, who gives this evidence, says two men were involved. And this is like 5 years after the event. One is already dead. And before they can question the second man, 2 days after Olga gives evidence, she's dead.
How can you say this is not related to the Carrian case? Now I have second thoughts. It's too suspicious.
I don't know. It's
It is too much coincidence. I think this is something into it. There's more into
Really?
it. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Something's wrong.
I don't know.
Well,
I think he fell in love with the girl, ran off.
Well, there's too many people wanting to say something when you...
But this is the Russian mafia. He's gone into a complete different realm here, right?
Well,
although there
can it be any international connections? Who knows?
There could be, because during the crisis in Malaysia, the Russian ambassador was expelled by the Malaysian government. And here, let me see that for you.
Is that relevant?
Well, you asked for the Russian connection.
Well, fine.
Okay, so let's see. Lorraine Osman alleged that perhaps Mack was blackmailing Jalil, although he made no suggestion as to over what or why the blackmailer should kill his source of funds, or possibly that the murder had been carried out to embarrass the Malaysian government after they had expelled a Russian diplomat.
Wow, this is in the book. This is in Ian Robinson's book.
Yes.
Wow.
So, yeah, but I still don't think Alderdice was, anyway.
Well, anyway, this is what husband and wife do at their leisure time, reading and solving these mysteries, right?
Yes.
Very romantic.
Yeah,
Well, all right, so maybe this is about it. Do you have any more to tell me?
The only reason I'm doing this is because I did the Carrian case with you, okay? I just like to be very thorough when I do these things.
Sure.
And this is just a bunch of loose ends that is there. That's always, another big loose end is who's the Malaysian official?
Oh.
Okay, someone in Malaysia, I believe, gave a green light for the hit to happen on Jalil. And that guy's never been held accountable.
I see.
Yeah. Although it says Mack named a senior Malaysian politician, so...
Let me tell you something. This name has been disclosed somewhere in the Hong Kong press.
Yeah?
Yes, it had been, but of course, the murderer, Mack, he in court tell the court, I was lying yesterday. That was not true. So, so more or less, people know what that name is. But I think he's still alive, so maybe we can leave it for later.
Yeah, and also if you see the episode Dangerous Persons 2.0, and you see what the chief inspector says, there is because he flew down to the bank, and a Malaysian police officer pulled him aside at one point. So, and he interrogated Mack. But what he said was, in essence, he has a suspicion, but he doesn't have the evidence, so he's not going to say it. As a good policeman, you need that evidence. So you'll find, I think, one thing with Norman, he's pretty by the book guy, pretty straight shooter.
Well, anyway, so when time goes by, one day we may know the whole truth somehow. The chance. Well, thank you for telling me the story.
I just feel bad for John.
Who? Which John? Wimbush?
Wimbush.
Yeah, I feel bad.
I mean, he had a family too. It really looked like
Yeah.
someone did a number on him. Like Jalil, I felt bad for him when we were in the room, but he actually knew he was in danger. He, all right, for the letters to his wife. He knew he was in danger, I don't think John knew he was in danger, otherwise he wouldn't have came back.
What happened to this Chief Justice, the Roberts? How did he end?
Yeah, I think he got a knighthood.
He got a knighthood?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
2013, I think he passed.
I see.
Yeah. But you want to really dig into him? I bet you there's a lot of stuff there.
All right then. Well, maybe I'll read some more into these books.
Okay, yeah, all right, you do that.
All right.
The reason I was referring to blackmail material, one of the reasons on Sir Denny Roberts is because of the law in Hong Kong. In June 14th, 1865, the Offenses Against the Persons Ordinance Act criminalized homosexuality in Hong Kong, with buggery being an imprisonment, an offense that you could be in prison for 10 years. So this is repealed back in July 1991. However, the good news here is that lesbianism was allowed. There's no law against it.
Yeah, but for gay homosexuality at that time, it was not only the stigma. You still carry stigmas nowadays in some areas, like some professions. They still give you a look. Okay?
You still get stoned in some places.
Yeah, okay, but apart from the stigma, in those days, before 1991, it was officially criminal to be in homosexual activities, and homosexuality was not was not legal, and it was also considered as a mental illness for a very long period of time. So it was like 126 years of illegality on homosexuality for men until 1991. So that was sufficient to blackmail a judge.
Yeah, but it's kind of odd how the lesbianism is not considered a mental issue.
Because there's not so much invasive activities, I would believe. Because buggery itself, we have just changed the law, I think, in 2014. Because in the old days, non-consensual, or you can't even consent to buggery, okay, if you are under 16 years old. You have to be on 21, I believe. So people were saying that it is not fair because for a woman, 16 years old or above, you can give consent to have sex with a guy.
Really?
For women.
Okay.
But if it is for guys, you cannot until you're 21. So people say that was discrimination law between the two sexes. So they changed the law now. So the law says if you are 16 years old above, you are a guy, you can consent to have annual sex with.
Annual sex?
Sex, John.
Okay,
So,
all right.
But I remember if it is non-consensual buggery by a man to a woman, the penalty still can be quite severe. I think if I remember.
Well, that's
correctly,
rape.
Yeah.
It's unconsensual. It's rape.
Yeah. So that is actually serious. Yeah. So it's like rape, but they have specific law on that. But
Okay.
anyway, that's the law on that.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, comment, thumbs up. Thank you very much for your attention and time. Cheers.